Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, my name is Shane Radford. I'm the Workplace Insights Manager and Senior Account Lead for the American and European markets at XY We're thrilled to be presenting how to drive value using utilization intelligence today. I'm super excited that you're all able to attend today. I know how crazy schedules can get at the end of the year here, so I know it's difficult to carve out time. So really just want to kind of reiterate how appreciative we are. In a world where workplace teams are facing increasing pressures to reduce real estate costs while improving workplace experience, it's little wonder that 90% of companies are looking to track space utilization to better understand office and portfolio performance and employee space preference. In this webinar, we'll explore the key ways occupancy sensors generate value for workplace teams and the key factors to consider when designing occupancy sensor deployments to maximize your ROI. To provide a quick overview of what we'll be covering today, we'll go over popular use cases and why workplace leaders are investing in them. We'll hear from a couple of XYSense customers on how they're leveraging XYSense technology. We'll chat about how the metrics and data we provide drive ROI, and we'll dive into how to successfully plan for an XYSense deployment. Today, as I mentioned, we'll be joined by some of our fantastic customers. Rob Wainwright is the Associate Director of Workplace Occupancy at CBRE. And the other is Ken Wu, the Workplace Technology Program Manager at Intuit. Before we turn things over to Rob and Ken, I do want to take a few moments to set the stage. To help shape the size of the opportunity in front of us, it's important to call out that real estate is the world's largest asset class. It's also one of the asset classes hardest impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The ways in which people gather, collaborate, and work together has been forever changed. And while that's caused plenty of challenges for everyone involved, it also presents us with a tremendous opportunity to become more efficient. There's roughly $400 billion being wasted each year on empty space. Additionally, real estate as the world's largest asset class is also its biggest polluter, responsible for 39% of global carbon emissions. With so much underutilized space around the world, it's up to us as real estate professionals to identify ways to operate more sustainably and more cost effectively. So how do we know this? Well, our sensors are collecting an immense amount of data. With readings being taken every 2 seconds, we're capturing data from 25,000 office spaces across 17 countries for a total of 100 billion data points per year. You heard that correctly, 100 billion data points. And with those data points, we're seeing approximately 30% average office utilization globally across the first half of this year. That average utilization percentage seems to have stabilized at 50% of what we were seeing pre-pandemic. To rephrase that a bit, we're seeing about half the utilization that we saw pre-pandemic. Going a little bit further, when we look at office utilization by day of the week, Mondays and Fridays are much less utilized in the middle of the week, which makes a lot of sense because who doesn't love long weekends? To give you just kind of a quick rundown of our hardware, our sensors are installed in ceilings and take readings every 2 seconds. In this clip you see on the screen, my colleague Luke is shown walking to his desk. Our area sensors have been trained to anonymously detect human beings and assign them an XY coordinate, hence our name. When these coordinates are married with a floor plan in the cloud, we'll position someone on a floor plan to within 1 foot of where they actually are. The screen on the right shows red boxes around work points as they go from unoccupied to occupied as Luke sits at the desk. As Luke spends time in that geofence zone, we'll calculate utilization rates and aggregate that data into our analytics platform. What we're seeing in the market around the world is that teams need to be supported differently post-pandemic because the ways that we work today are different. The vast majority of our customers have adopted unassigned seating, flexible office use, fit-out experimentation, dynamic space assignments, and a focus on maximizing the employee experience when they are in the office. More now than ever, it's important to reduce friction for employees when they're coming into the office. Pulling data from CBRE's 2022 Occupancy Benchmark Report, we get a really good sense for what key strategic decisions real estate and workplace teams are focusing on. 87% of these professionals are working to optimize their portfolios. 69% are planning a return to office, and 65% are searching for ways to reduce costs. With real estate being the second largest expense, only behind payroll for most organizations, these are meaningful projects with significant dollar amounts connected to them. However, business leaders have struggled to get their hands on the right data to inform their decision making. So with high stakes to create dynamic, high-performing workplaces, real estate leaders are turning to accurate, real-time utilization data to deliver stellar results across their organization. Utilization data is key to connect the dots between people, productivity, and place. And this likely doesn't come as a surprise to most of you, as CBRE's research shows that 90% of enterprise organizations are planning to track space utilization. So whether you need to better support hybrid teams, reduce costs by right-sizing your portfolio correctly, or implement smart FM strategies, utilization data should be a critical piece of information reviewed regularly. There are several different methods to capture utilization data, and each method comes with a varying degree of accuracy. The most accurate and actionable approach is to deploy occupancy sensors. As a result, this technology has gained a lot of market interest over the past few years, and CBRE research indicates that 90% of companies are gathering utilization data of some kind, up 11% from 2021. But a majority of them are also looking to improve the accuracy of the data they collect. Why? Well, if you're using traditional proxies for utilization like surveys, badge data, Wi-Fi, you're likely encountering inaccuracies and data gaps. Ultimately, the rules of the past no longer apply, and previous solutions are no longer fit for purpose. To make the most informed decisions, real estate leaders need real-time data capture, data accuracy, actionable on-demand reports, live APIs for integration such as Smart FM, and solutions built for scalable deployments. So when we're talking about an occupancy sensor deployment, what does success look like? The companies that I work with can usually point to several of these four value buckets you see on the screen for why they're invested in our technology. They're taking a data-forward approach to portfolio strategy and site optimization, smart FN and operational excellence, return to office and hybrid redesign, and maximizing the workplace experience to reduce friction for our employees. Now that we've set the stage, let's take a quick look at a few anonymized case studies. A leading APAC telecom acquired a competitor and began the process of integration, hoping to improve agility and collaboration by consolidating all staff in a single office. The goal was to sublet or release the 38,000 square meters office of the acquired company and minimize space and expense when relocating the acquired team. XY Sense data showed that if the business moved to flexible seating arrangements, they could easily accommodate the other teams in the existing location without adding space. Ultimately, 336 people were being moved, and as a result, ample workspaces and conference space was able to become available due to this move to flexible seating. Therefore, ultimately, they didn't have to roll out any additional resources or purchase anything else. When we're looking at a leading US healthcare company, they had been receiving many complaints about how challenging it was to find vacant meeting spaces. Well, they had a meeting booking solution in place. It often showed spaces occupied when no meeting was actually taking place, and free rooms when impromptu conversations were actually happening. They wanted to reduce team frustration and enhance workplace productivity by making it faster and easier to find meeting space. The company integrated real-time XY Sense utilization data into its meeting booking platform to show actual room occupancy on team members' computers and on lobby screens. By saving just 2.5 minutes of time per employee per day in unproductive meeting space searches, and that 2.5 minutes is a very conservative estimate, the company could realize 72 person years in productivity gains across its 13,000 person organization. At an average annual employee cost of $130,000, this meant a minimum $9.36 million in improved productivity. And looking at another one of our anonymized case studies here, a tech company was using a combination of positive and punitive strategies to encourage more employee time in office. They adjusted the mix of workstations and meeting areas, implemented a variety of new meeting and collaboration area formats, and changed their voluntary hybrid work rules to mandatory requirements. The workplace team wanted to benchmark effectiveness of these initiatives and understand employee acceptance and usage of new meeting space types. Real-time measurement from XY Sense showed the company which teams were in compliance with the new policies and which needed additional outreach and encouragement. In addition to measuring team compliance by day, they also tracked entry and exit times to better understand employee behavior on and office days. They then analyzed that utilization data for conference rooms and other collaboration areas so that they could go ahead and start right-sizing their meeting room portfolio. The company was able to pinpoint non-compliant teams through these studies and reach out to their leaders to ensure that workers understood the new rules. This helped them drive double-digit improvements in hybrid work rule compliance. They're also able to rationalize their meeting and collaboration space setups, reducing the size of some rooms to better reflect the number of people attending meetings, and adding additional small areas to eliminate shortages of available meeting space. The company also was able to learn which new collaboration space types were popular and which should not be expanded. Now that we've gone through the why and a few case studies, it's worth taking a moment to sense check the maturity of your own workplace data strategy. A few questions to ponder throughout the rest of this presentation and over the next few days are, how do you currently measure occupancy and utilization in your workplace? How difficult is it to access, combine, and interpret this data? Do your systems support real-time occupancy data capture? Is your data integrated and serving multiple use cases in your organization? As with any new technology, it's common for customers to start small and grow over time. We often see organizations follow a phased approach to deploying sensors and maturing in how they operationalize the data over time. So it's perfectly okay to crawl, walk, run. In fact, we encourage it, and we're here to support you every step of the way. If you find yourself on the early stages of that occupancy intelligent maturity curve we were just looking at, it's perfectly okay. We're here to help you take the guesswork out of your workplace strategy and share insights that we see developing in the market. For a small cost per square foot, you can help your workplace teams ensure that real estate is working for you. Getting down to brass tacks, for about 41 cents, and that's US dollars I'm talking here, per square foot, per year, you can ensure that you're driving ROI on your space and that you're providing a frictionless work experience for your employees. Now that we've gone through the why, we've looked at a couple of quick anonymized case studies, and we're starting to learn what a mature occupancy strategy can look like. Let's hear from workplace teams themselves. I'm going to pass it off to one of our terrific customers, Rob Wainwright. As a quick reminder, Rob is the Associate Director of Workplace Occupancy at CBRE. So Rob, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you to discuss how CBRE has found success with XY Sense.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to join the seminar today. Yes, I'm talking to you from our Henrietta House building, which is in London, which was completely refurbished from the ground up over 3 years, between 2018 and 2021. During that time, the building was increased by 40%, and it was completely opened out to create an open, modern, collaborative workspace. Central to this was the implementation of XY Sense sensors, because we wanted to make sure that we were tracking the usage of the building and understanding the space. Because it's important to bear in mind that we had two significant factors at play. The first is we were bringing teams into the building who hadn't previously been in the building. We were asking all teams to work in a different way, in a modern collaborative fashion. And probably most significantly, all of this took place during COVID. So everybody was locked down, nobody was working from the office. So we didn't have any benchmark data for when the building opened for how it was going to be used. So being able to quickly gather accurate utilization data was essential for us to understand usage of the building as people moved in. And we've picked out a few points here on the slide. I think the frictionless work or the frictionless service was really important. We wanted people to be able to use the building in an easy way, to be able to understand the building in an easy way. So to assist that, we linked the XYSense data to our own employee experience app called Host, so that all employees can have Host on their phone. They can bring up the app, they can bring up a floor plan, and they can look to see where desk availability is on that floor. That same data is also replayed to screens around the building. So when you're in the building, you can identify areas that are less busy. And we found that the building has been incredibly popular and incredibly successful. Certainly from Q4 of last year, when I suppose you could say that the tail end of COVID, certainly in the UK, was, and everyone was getting back to the new normal. Since then we've been experiencing occupancy levels, average occupancy levels of 75 to 80%, peak occupancy levels on Tuesdays and Thursdays of 90%. So an incredibly busy building, which brings its own unique challenges with the pressure on the space. So again, the utilization data that we derive from XYSense is absolutely essential. We report regularly to the senior management team on how the building has been used and what our proposals and our suggestions are for improving the employee experience in the building, and matching the challenges that the employees are giving us through their love of the building and their desire to be in it. So certainly without XYSense, we would have been completely lost. We wouldn't have been able to take the data-based decisions that we've been able to make. Yes, I think that's a very quick canter through our experience. If you have any questions, Shane.
Yeah, sure. So Rob, these lessons and outcomes are fantastic. As we have had multiple conversations, it's awesome to see CBRE reducing friction in the workplace and how you all have leveraged the data to make a positive impact, not just, on your real estate, but on the quality of the work lives that your employees live. Obviously, every employee is unique in their preferences and the way they work. So it's really awesome to see such a big focus on expanding accessibility and improving the experience for everyone. Rob, you mentioned, talking about taking this data regularly to executive leadership, versus, the data sets that you had before versus when you had XYSense. What would you say the biggest differences in those conversations when you're making recommendations or you're asking for, support on new projects?
Oh, that's a good question, Shade. I think the main thing is just having the confidence that we have data to back up our decisions. So it's not a matter of our opinion against somebody else's opinion. We're merely reporting the numbers and reflecting on the numbers and making our decisions based on the numbers rather than based on sentiment, because space, as much as any other sort of area of human activity, can become sort of quite subjective, and being able to take an objective stance purely based on the data, it has been really useful for us.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I think like the greatest thing about having those data sets is the ability to remove the bias out of those conversations.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I'm sorry. I think one of the most interesting things is certainly the data we've been able to derive around the average usage a day of desks. So although desks are incredibly popular, the data we've been able to derive and report the fact that on average maybe a desk is only being used for 3 hours a day. So to demonstrate that we have a challenge there with behavior and maybe trying to sweat that asset a little bit more, again, that's really useful for us to challenge those behaviors and really improve how we use the building.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Really appreciate you sharing all that. I think it's a super valuable story. So now that we've heard some, great stories from you, Rob, and I'm going to pass things off to another incredible customer of ours, Ken Wu, who once again, just to remind you all, he's the Workplace Technology Program Manager at Intuit. With that, Ken, feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Shane. Ken Wu here. I work out of the Intuit San Diego office, and we are a global financial software company with offices in Europe, Asia, and several other countries, including the US. We definitely did the run, walk, crawl thing. Sorry, crawl, walk, run. Yep. We started off with just one sensor here in San Diego to get an idea of what kind of information and data we could collect from a sensor. And prior to the pandemic, we were primarily an assigned seat company. We had very little flex seating. And so the pandemic, of course, changed everything because that was our opportunity to pivot to a hybrid and flex model. And now we've got plans to be a primarily flex company in the next couple of years. So our objective was to understand that behavior between how meeting rooms are used in conjunction with flex desks, because we had never really had flex desks before. And so we didn't know, A, how were the flex desks going to be used, and B, how were the meeting rooms next to those areas going to be used. And so we implemented a number of sensors at 3 US locations as well as Toronto. And we equipped all of the conference rooms in buildings with sensors, and we were able to get really great data on how many people were in the rooms and how long they were there for, and view the ratio between the room size and the occupants in there to understand whether the right rooms were how the rooms were being used. That third bullet point has been really interesting for us to start having discussions on what will our future sites look like. So we're currently installing sensors at some sites coming online in the next few months, and using the data from those new sites that will inform our projects in the future. So for example, we'll be able to have discussions on, did we have the right number of very large conference rooms or not enough smaller conference rooms? And we're already seeing some interesting trends on the average meeting size. For our company, the average meeting size is about 4 people. And so that begs the question of, do we have the right mix of small, medium, and large conference rooms if all of our meetings have 4 people in them? One thing we're also working on is a no-show reporting, where we're able to see who's booked meetings in Outlook but have not utilized those meetings, and we're reminding them to please be careful with the use of the precious room resources. Some of the outcomes that we have had are, we've tied our sensors to reporting platforms so that we can have consolidated reporting. We're starting to understand how the meeting rooms are being used, how long they are, the number of people in the room versus the room size. And we are also trying to figure out how to handle the no-shows. So we had this hypothesis that if we reminded people that they should be careful about booking rooms and using them, that they would be upset or offended or whatever. But we learned that people have been pretty receptive to those types of communications, and everyone wants to be. We're finding that people actually want to do the right thing, so that's been useful in driving our no-show rate down. We're trying to drive future decisions on new space, and as I mentioned earlier, do we have the right mix of rooms in our new projects? And the final point is the complexity of the installation. There were some logistical challenges that we had to kind of get through, and so making sure you have proper resourcing and building out your project plan to kind of account for challenges that you might find might be a useful tactic for you as well. And XYSense does have installation services that could be utilized instead of kind of doing it yourself.
As a newer customer, it's been awesome to see Intuit begin to embrace the data. And it seems like everyone on your team is beginning to feel out additional ways to utilize the data to provide value. It's even more impressive knowing that you're working towards, such an impact in the workplace. And I know we've had conversations about, how this might also tie into its stewardship and governance program, while still only having the sensors deployed in the meeting rooms right now. So kind of talking about that, the stewardship and the governance program, that we've had chats about in the past.
Yeah, so like many other organizations, we have a lot of systems. So we have the occupancy system, and we have badging system, and we have a sensor system, XY sensor system, and we have a Wi-Fi reporting system. And so all of those systems have different data models and different ways of integrating the data across the systems. And so what we've been trying to figure out is how do we define the rules, and how do we define the data models so that they can interoperate across all of those multiple systems? Because if those aren't developed and defined, then you end up with a kind of a decline in your data quality and integrity. So it's been a journey of working with all the various system owners and stewards to try to figure out what is the source of truth, and how do we ensure consistent data and sync across the multiple systems.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And really, appreciate, the thought that goes into all that, and how having the data, once again, can remove the bias from those conversations a little bit. One last thing, Ken, that I wanted to touch on. You mentioned when we were kind of prepping for this webinar, that the competition in the market for these sensors, measuring occupancy, can be broad and differentiated. Every sensor solution is a little bit different. While at the same time, it can be difficult to relay those conversations that you have with these providers to other internal stakeholders. So just wanted to kind of, flag that again, for you to maybe share some insight on what kind of conversations and what kind of questions people might want to ask when they're trying to build that business case internally to select a vendor.
Yeah, so there's several types of sensors. There's the ceiling sensors, and then there's the entryway sensors, and then there's the battery powered sensors, and all of those solutions can make sense for different use cases depending on what companies are trying to do. So there's a lot of discussion about what were our requirements and which products and vendors kind of met those requirements. And so what we had to do was kind of define all those and document requirements versus vendor capabilities to figure out which vendors met our requirements the best. And the other thing that was interesting for us was the kind of the interplay between multiple technologies. So we have badging. We have a badging system where we have reporting, and we also have a Wi-Fi reporting solution. And so how all of those technologies work together is a conversation that the team has had to figure out where one technology starts and ends, and where the other one kind of takes over. So one is more of a higher level portfolio utilization tool, whereas of course the room sensors are a smaller zone. One concern that our team also had was wiring and getting all the cabling in and getting through the ceilings, and it sounded like a lot, and I think some of our leaders were a little hesitant to go through all that work, and it just seemed really scary. And so we had to talk about what were the costs and how long would it take, and how would we overcome these challenges. And I think the main talking point for me was the quality of the data that we would get eventually. So being able to show the various reporting that XY provides was once people saw the reporting and the detail and the power of it, they realized, oh, whatever trouble this feels like, it's probably worth it to get this rich set of data that we'll get eventually.
Yeah, really appreciate that insight. And once again, Ken, that point kind of ties into the crawl, walk, run piece of it. Start small, get some data that you can show, and it becomes a little bit easier to have those conversations, especially when, yeah, you do hear, oh, cabling installation. It can be a little bit scary to kind of, prep yourself for and to work your way through those conversations. Ken and Rob, in general, again, just really want to take a moment to thank you both for sharing your experience with XY Sense again. I'd love to dive in a little bit further here to just a couple more questions as we open up the Q&A here. Just to kind of start with, I've got a quick question for each of you. Rob, I know we focused a lot on improving the employee experience during your portion of the webinar today, but really keen to understand the process of taking the data and making it actionable. When it comes down to it, data is only data. It's how you act on the data that counts. So have you had any learnings on the best way to operationalize this data on like that consistent, that regular basis to influence the way that the team works? And maybe going even a little bit further, a level deeper, how has it made life easier just for yourself?
Yeah, that's again, it's a good question, and I think it's the same as a lot of our experiences in this building. It's been a case of test and learn. So we moved into a brand new shiny building with all this new technology, and yeah, we probably spent 6 months just playing with it and just getting our head around it, and then looking at the data we could extract from it, and then started to firm up what was critical, what was important. In our case, it was the use of desks. Desks were by far the most popular space type. So being able to understand how those desks were being used and which ones were being used was really critical. And it also allowed us to examine space types which maybe weren't working as hard as they could do. Some of the collaboration spaces just weren't working. Combination, maybe the location, the furniture type. So we were able to make some tactical changes, swap desks around, swap space types around. Again, just based on that information. But also we've been able to push back the other way. We have what we call protected spaces. So we have low utilization spaces, which are deliberately designed to be low utilization spaces, such as a library. We have a wonderful library on our 7th floor, which is a quiet space. It's meant to be a quiet space. We can push back to say, well, we really don't want utilization in that space to go above a certain amount because it takes away the point of the space. So again, to have that database for us to back up that argument has been really useful.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Really great to get your insight again. And now, Ken, we've talked about a few times utilizing the downstream softwares that you have from XY Sense. I know in the past you and I have had discussions surrounding those ghost bookings, and it came up a little bit today, and those decreasing. I guess the question I want to get at is, what were the issues that Intuit was having with the ghost bookings, and then today, now that you have those reminders going out with the XY Sense data, how has that helped you sort of curb those?
Yeah, so before we had XY Sense, we had a situation where a lot of our workforce would arrange meetings with meeting rooms, and then they would often do that in a recurring fashion. So they'd book, 3 months worth of meetings on a Thursday afternoon, and then maybe the meeting was no longer needed, or people started attending it remotely on Zoom. And so there was a situation where we had a lot of unused bookings, and we did a manual study where what we found was about 50% of our bookings were unused. And so from the user perspective, as someone who's trying to find a conference room, they would go to Outlook and they'd look for a available room, and they would find nothing. So they would complain to the workplace team that, hey, we don't have enough conference rooms. But when we did the manual utilization study, we realized that about half of the bookings were actually unused. So they would book the room, not show up. And so the end user trying to book a meeting would think that there's no meeting room availability, but in fact, there's plenty of availability. It's just showing up in Outlook as being unavailable. And so when we deployed XY Sense and connected it, we were sending out these polite reminders asking people to be good corporate citizens. And what we found was that our ghost booking rate dropped from about 50% to about the low 20s. And so we still have pockets of different floors or training areas. Certain teams still have a kind of a higher ghost booking rate than others, but overall it's dropped. And it's also the tools giving us the ability to focus on those sort of problem areas and figure out the root cause of what's going on there and why are these teams so bad with their booking and usage.
Yeah, no, really appreciate you diving into that, Ken. I always find that super interesting to see the drop in the ghost bookings. Obviously, there's still a little bit of a challenge there, and that's getting to the bottom of the human behavior, right? And trying to figure it out. So thank you, Ken. Always awesome to get your viewpoint and thoughts. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A here a little bit and start to pull some of these questions from here. And Rob and Ken, if you don't mind hanging out for another 5 minutes or so, I'll start to pull some of these questions and answer them. If there are questions that we don't answer today, you can feel free to send those to me directly at shane.radford@xysense.com. Again, that's shane.radford@xysense.com. So the first question that we have here at the top is what do your sensors measure? Movement and occupancy, or also humidity, CO2, and temperature? So that's a great question. So our sensors are computer vision based, and what they do is they're going to be tracking movement, occupancy, and that's really what it's going to focus on. We don't necessarily play as much in the humidity, CO2, temperature range. So we stick with movement, occupancy. We also do people counting. We all, in the future, we will have, other solutions going forward. Awesome. Thanks for answering those, Ken. One of them, came up about the XY Sense support. If you have like an average experience with XY support, that's obviously not what we want to provide. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. And I'm always there to help escalate and move things along and make sure that things are getting answered quickly and moving through and get it escalated to the correct team members. So awesome. I knew that we got a question about sharing the slides. So what I can do is I can go through and see if there's any sensitive information in like the speaker notes here before I'm 110% sure that we can share those slides. Like I said, there will be a recording of this, so you are always welcome to share that with the team as well. Awesome. I think that's all we've got, from a question standpoint. Some really good questions in there. Ken, you took the time to answer some of those, and Rob as well. Really just want to thank you, both of you again. So everybody, if you could please just give a virtual round of applause to Ken and Rob. I know the end of the year, again, can get crazy with schedules, meetings, planning. So I really do appreciate, both of you fitting us into your hectic schedules, especially, Rob, being a little bit, halfway across the world, like I said, burning that dinner time oil. So I'm sure you're hungry and really appreciate you guys joining. So either one of you, I know that your days are busy. So I'm going to go ahead and start to kind of go through a few more slides here to wrap up the webinar, but I don't feel like you have to stick around, especially if you got dinner plans there, Rob. So
okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay then. Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. So as we round out the webinar here, everybody, I want to share some high-level tips and tricks for how to maximize your ROI when rolling out XY Sense. So one of the main things you want to stick to is you want to define your strategic objectives for workplace analytics. And so what that looks like is you want to regroup on your workplace strategy. You want to look at your priorities and objectives. You want to look at what data sets you currently have and how that's feeding into your decision making. You want to always know kind of what your North Star is, or at least have an idea of where you want to head. And then you want to start thinking about what challenges you're facing when it comes to the employee experience, portfolio right sizing, things of that nature. The next thing that you really want to start to look at is kind of building off that first point. You want to audit your existing workplace data sources. So if you have, badge data, lighting data, BMS, IWMS, booking tools, you want to start looking at how that data is, maybe where the value is in that and where there might be holes, so that you can start to, analyze the quality of that data and get performance on the insights of it. And then from there, you can start to identify and create action plans. And so ultimately knowing where your gaps are will make it way easier to fill them. The next piece here is, just reinforcing a few things that we said on this call with the crawl, walk, run. Run a pilot or validation experiment with, one location or one floor. Define the success criteria for that pilot. We want to measure our return to office occupancy for a particular location for 12 weeks. We want to optimize our desk ratios on particular floors. Floor 5, we want to figure out the desk ratios there. And we want to figure out the most effective floor balancing strategies for Mondays and Fridays. No secret for, a lot of you here that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is certainly more popular than Monday and Friday. So those are just a few ideas of, using the XY Sense technology, how to validate it, and how to kind of engage with that crawl, walk, run sort of framework. When it comes to that crawl, walk, run, we're here to help support you, here to help validate the use of the technology to solve your challenges, ultimately help you drive that ROI. I'm talking to customers every single day. I think one of the favorite parts of my job is when we're looking at the data is being able to help customers kind of build presentations and build that business case. And then the last piece there is operationalizing and scaling those insights. So like I was saying, I love meeting with customers, going over what their data looks like, and then helping them build those business cases and presentations to give to executive audiences. So when we're operationalizing and scaling those insights, a couple points there is to deploy relevant solutions for that portfolio-wide data capture. That's what those occupancy sensors are going to do. And then, going a level deeper, and this is something that Intuit and both CBRE have done, is exploring further integrations in your workplace tech stack to help drive ROI and get the maximum, value that you can out of occupancy sensors and the data. And as I kind of leave you all here, as we start to wrap up, just remember, not all data sources are created equally. We've seen that our occupancy sensors have helped drive strategic, valuable decisions for our customers. In fact, you heard from a couple of them today and how they've operationalized our data and their data to solve complex problems, to improve the work life of their employees, and to execute high-value, evidence-backed decisions. Awesome. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn here. There's QR code. You can look up Shane Radford. That's my picture on LinkedIn as well. So you'll see that pop up. Feel free to connect, send me a message. Once again, you can also send me an email at shane.radford@xysense.com. I'm always happy to have a chat, dive into things with you and figure out, where occupancy sensors might work. And, even there's, going a level deeper. If there's another solution I think that will work better for your use cases, I'm not afraid to suggest that as well. I'm always here to help and really like to see people succeed. That's why I got into this type of career. So feel free to reach out, keep that conversation rolling. And then kind of here to round things out, there's another QR code here. We can learn more about why workplace leaders love our solution and the value that it provides to them. So again, just want to take a couple minutes here to thank everybody for joining today. I know the end of the year is just insane. It's the day before Halloween. And I know that conference season is also in full swing. Speaking of conference season, XY Sense is actually here at the Cornet Global Conference in Denver. I'm actually in Denver right now. I'll be going back over to our booth here in a few minutes as we wrap up. So feel free to stop by, say hi, have a conversation. Myself and our CEO are both at the booth, so we're happy to have those high-level value conversations and answer any questions that you might have if you happen to be here at Cornet. So thank everybody again. Thank you, Ken, for taking your time. I know Rob dropped off. Sounded like you wanted to go grab some dinner. I just want to say thank you to Rob again. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar here now, everybody, but really appreciate you joining again today. Have a good one.
Hi, I'm Alex, co-founder and CEO of XY Sense, and I'm here to give you a demonstration of our market-leading sensor platform, working live in our offices in Melbourne, Australia. For those who are new to XY Sense, we're the leading occupancy intelligence platform for workplace teams. Our solution combines 100% privacy-preserving occupancy sensors with a real-time workplace insights platform. helping teams at some of the biggest companies around the world to control real estate costs, boost office performance, and design workplace environments that people love. Our sensors look a little like a wireless access point or a smoke detector that is installed on the ceiling or above the doorways in your office. Using our exclusive algorithm, sensors can detect human occupancy in a space and position the X and Y coordinates of people to within 1 foot of accuracy in real time. Let's get to the demo so you can see it in action. As my colleague James walks to his desk, you'll see how our sensors immediately register his presence, and his desk transitions from unoccupied to occupied. It also tracks entry and exit counts for spaces like meeting rooms. Let's watch as my colleagues enter the conference room and the entry count updates in real time. When they leave, the exit count is also updated, providing you with real-time insights into how many people are in each space. It's important to note that we've designed our entire platform from the ground up with privacy first. While we can count the number of people in a space, no images of people are recorded or stored, and there is no way to ever identify any individual. While my colleague Siobhan is walking, we can see the live view. This shows her exact location in real time. All of this highly accurate real-time data feeds into our Workplace Insights platform, which aggregates across time and gives teams powerful insights into how much space and what types of space their employees need, taking the guesswork out of workplace strategy and design. XYSense data is also available via API to power real-time booking tools and sustainable smart building applications. I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration of XYSense working live in a real office environment. When it comes to our real-time accuracy, seeing is believing, and we're proud to be the market leader when it comes to both the coverage range and real-time precision of our sensors. To learn more about how we could support your workplace strategy, visit xysense.com.